And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Tonye, who during his near-death experience saw his true nature as a light being and more. Tonye, thank you for joining me and welcome.
Thank you very much, Jeff, for having me on your brilliant podcast, which is at over 150K subscribers. I hope you get to million more subscribers, and hopefully my message could help someone or a few more people in the NDE community.
Thank you, Tonye, for your kind words. I really appreciate that. And if you don't mind, let's just start on the day you died and go from there.
Oh, okay. I think I was about 11 years old, 10 or 11 years old. I'm not sure because I'm almost in my 50s. That's a long time ago. And we lived about 2 minutes walk from my cousin's house. And my cousins were part European because their mom was European and their dad was African. And I went over to their house and I realized they were going to the beach to swim. They called my parents and asked for permission and they took me along. But I couldn't swim. But I knew I was going there just to play around with my cousins who were all boys. And the plan was to drink, eat as a 10-year-old, kick the soccer ball around, and just have fun. I had no intentions of swimming because I knew I couldn't. So while we were on the beach and my cousins were all busy, I saw this guy, was about in his 20s, on a surfboard go up and down the wave and up and down. I thought to myself, that looks very, very beautiful. Um, I didn't think anything of it. I just thought it looked really wonderful and spectacular. Mind you, this was around the 80s. You know, television was a bit just new back then in Africa. And so I hadn't seen much of anybody surfing. So it was something new to me. I just thought it was interesting. And then I went back to eating and drinking Coke and just playing around with my cousins. The next time I turned around, I saw this kid, about 5 years old, surfing on the ocean. And I'm thinking to myself, if a 5-year-old can do it, obviously a 10, 11-year-old can do it. I mean, it doesn't work that way, right? But this is what a 10-year-old would think. You know, if he sees a 5-year-old doing something, he thinks I'm bigger, so obviously I can do it as well. And one thing led to another. I found myself with a surfboard. I don't remember how, but it was a long time ago again, over 40 years ago. And I knew I couldn't swim, so my plan was very simple. Just paddle myself to a point where I know my knee or my waist is around sea level, and then wait for the wave to come and do exactly what they all did, climb on the board and surf the wave. That was the plan. But I did not take into account that the tides could pull you back further than you thought, because I had never been in the ocean as a swimmer, but I had obviously walked on the beach. So the tides pulled me a bit further than I thought I was. And by the time the wave came, a massive, I want to say 6-meter wave. This is just an estimation. I don't know. I'm just guessing. A massive wave came. And by the time I got on the board to stabilize myself to wait for it to come, this was my first time on a surfboard. Remember that? So I panicked. The wave hit me. I went into the water head first, and my head touched the bottom of the ocean, the sand, upside down, and some sand went into my nostrils, and I started struggling. Then I realized that the wave had pulled me further than my head could handle me, and now I was in danger zone because I can't swim, and I'm in over my head. And my plan was completely messed up. So, and also I did not know that you had to attach the cord, the rope of the surfboard to your leg, so you don't lose it. So I didn't know all these things. So I lost the board. I was struggling in the water, and I was drinking a lot of seawater, and my eyes were going red. Somehow, while I was struggling, I got myself up above the sea level, and for some reason, I was looking at the beach, not um, the other side, and I could see people, on the beach having fun and enjoying. And the first thought that came to my mind was, I mean, they can't see I'm almost dying or drowning. And as I thought that, so another wave just came and pushed me under again. So I went under, I drank again more water, my eyes were going red. Mind you, it's seawater, so it's saltier. You're almost trying to puke, but more is getting into your head. And again, I was struggling, and for some reason again, I struggled to come up again for the second time. And during the second time, um, something really strange happened to me. While I was up, again, I'm guessing, I'm guessing I was up, my head was above water for about 3 seconds. That's my guess. I don't know, but it's my guess for the second time. And while I was up in those 3 seconds, I kind of like had an internal vision. It was more like a movie of my whole life. The same way we're having this conversation, I can hear you, you can hear me. I saw my whole life from 10, 11 back to when I was in my mother's womb, as if it was a movie playing on normal speed. I mean, don't ask me to explain this to you because I can't explain to you watching a movie of my 11 years in 3 seconds backwards to everything. So I can't explain that. But I can tell you for sure, this is what I saw. I could hear every conversation. I could see everywhere I'd been to. I could see all the class assignments I had, everything. Like in normal speed time, but I know it was the 3 second when I was above sea level. And after I saw that happen, again, the second wave came and hit me, and I went underneath the water. So I struggled again for a while, but this time around, I wasn't even feeling the water. It was as if my brain was in a different state. I could just feel myself struggling, but I wasn't feeling like I was struggling anymore. If that makes sense. I was struggling externally, but internally my mind was a lot more calmer, if that makes sense. So while I was doing that, and I came up for the third time, and I said to myself, okay, well, I've gone down 3 times, up, down 3 times. I said to myself, okay, well, the third time, this must be it. I'll probably die this time because now I've gone up once, I've gone up twice. The third time, in my head, something said, prepare to die. This is what something said in my mind. But as I came down the third time, I, for some strange reason, I looked up in the water. Again, this is in the country I come from, we have like black sand on the beach, not white sand. So when you look into the water, the reflection is not like blue; it's more darkish. But through the light, I could see something that looked like the shape of a surfboard, the surfboard. So I just struggled again, and I grabbed the board. And how I grabbed on the first try, I don't know. But I just grabbed the board, struggled, climbed on the board. I paddled out of the water, and when I got out of the water, I just went to the beach where you have, because on the beach you had coconut trees around the beach. I said to myself, okay, well, but I wasn't panting. I wasn't like struggling, whatever. I just said to myself internally, oh, I missed dying. But I was in such shock that I wasn't shouting. I, all I was thinking to myself was, go sit down, catch your breath, get back to normal. Um, but when I sat down, something really interesting happened. It's like my eyes became like a touchlight. It became super. Um, think of it like you're in a dark room, and then you put on the lights, and everything becomes visible. But mind you, this was around 4 or 5 p.m. in the afternoon. And in Africa at that time, the sun is still like bright, shining bright. It's not like in Europe or in America where it could be 4 p.m. and it's already dark during particular points of the year. But there was like pure sunshine out. Everything was bright. But for some reason, I f- my eyes were like everything felt like I saw everything super bright. Think of it more like I don't know, Superman or something with the X-ray vision where you can see like. But that's how I saw like everything was super bright, and I fixed my attention on the coconut tree in front of me. I mean, it looked so beautiful, beautiful beyond words. But it's just a coconut tree. It's nothing special. It's a normal coconut tree with a brown trunk with the green leaves and the whatever. But it looked extremely special and vibrant. It felt alive. And the more I looked at it, the more I felt like happy beyond words can explain. I'm not sure how to explain this to you, but it was more like I was having an interaction with a coconut tree, and my eyes, everything felt so bright, so vibrant. I felt so happy. Um, and then while I was fixed up on the coconut tree for about, I don't know how long I was there for, um, then my attention went to the grass on the floor, and the same thing happened. The grass was like a green I had never seen before, very vibrant, very. It made me feel very happy. It's hard to explain again. The color, just the color alone of the grass, made me feel like I was in heaven. Again, mind you, I'm 11 years old. I don't know what heaven looks like, but it looks something extraordinary to me. And this was the same grass and the same coconut tree I was just playing around before I went into the ocean. So it's nothing special. But the way my eyes saw them, I felt like I was in heaven. And I felt extremely happy just seeing the grass and the coconut tree. If that makes sense. It's a bit like when people explain that they went to heaven, they saw the garden was so bright. For me, I did not leave my body. I was in my body, sitting on the beach, and my eyes did that, and I saw everything that way. So after a while, I said, okay, well, let me have a sip of my Coca-Cola, which I was drinking. I remember very clearly. And when I took one sip, again, the taste felt like something I had never tasted before. And again, I was drinking Coke before I went to swim. So it's like my taste buds, everything changed. My eyes, my vision, my happiness. I became so happy. I felt so alive in that moment. But not because I almost died. It was more because of my interaction with the coconut tree and the grass and the Coke I drank. And I felt so, so happy just having those simple experiences and seeing life completely differently. And then after a while, again, I cannot put a time frame to it because I was so focused on enjoying the experiences. My vision came back to normal. Normal it was before I had all these extrasensory perceptions. It came back to normal. My taste buds came back to normal, and everything felt so boring, so dull after that experience. And again, I was about 10, 11, and I spent my whole life searching for the same experience, but I had never had the same experience again after that experience. And that was the happiest I had ever felt in my life when I was 10, 11. And no other happiness experience had ever compared to that same experience. And but I also realized that I had a few other gifts after my near experience in the water, which if I start saying them, they would sound a bit funny, which I'm trying to avoid. I mean, I'm only almost 50. I'm still working. I don't want to this video to go somewhere and people think, you know, I have some superpowers or something. That would be really funny. But I'd love to do another video when I'm like 70, 80, when I'm retired. and I have nothing to do with the world, then I'll be able to maybe share the other experiences I had after my NDE. But I want to say one of them was more like I became a lot more intuitive. Um, so intuitive to a point where it was scary to other people around me. There were things that I could know, which other people would find it strange that I could know those things. Which is one of the gifts I think I had from the NDA experience, and somehow I could somehow predict the future, my future, just only my future, nobody else, just my future. Where I could plan things 10, 20 years in advance, and they happen exactly as I planned them. And sometimes there were things without even me having any control over. For example, um, my dad um, gave birth to me when he was 44 years old, and after the experience, he was 55. And I said to myself, you know what? I want to be out of the country before my dad died. And it felt like I was on a how to put it, on a hurrying game to get out of my country in Africa before my dad passed away. And funny enough, after I finished my university and I got to the UK, 3 months after my dad died. And that I think was some intuition I got from the ND. I don't know how. I can't explain to you any calculations or anything. Just something I felt like was going to happen. And I felt like I was on a race to get myself together before my dad passed away. So this is just one of the things, but there's many other things I can't really get into. But this is just one of the intuitions I think I got. But anyway, I spent the rest of my time after the NDA as well. I dabbled in yoga. Um, I would not say I was a very serious yogi practitioner. I would say I practiced probably about 10 times a year. And it was usually when I was in a sad state, I would do yoga just to calm me down. But I was never a serious yogi, I just did like normal stuff, nothing out of the blue. For about 30 years. And then last year, 2013, on the 14th of January, I had my second NDE experience, which was, again, very different, but very shocking to me. On this day, there was a full moon, full bright moon overhead. And I went to bed trying to sleep. I went to bed late, probably around 2 a.m. at night, because I'm sort of like a night person. So just as I was about to fall asleep, I wasn't asleep yet, but just as I was about to fall asleep, again, I'm just trying to recollect because it was like 1.5 years ago. And my eyes were closed and everything was pitch black. But I could, it's like I could see a silvery liquid going in the dark, up in the dark. Again, it's pitch black. So my eyes are closed. I can't see anything. But it was like a silvery liquid. And it was a bit like what people explain to be in a dark void and moving towards a light. But mine wasn't moving towards any light. Mine was more like I was in a dark void and I could see a silvery liquid, a bit like water, but silvery, moving up. And although I couldn't tell if I had any body parts or not, again, this is a bit strange because I could not tell if I had any body parts or not. But I felt more like the silver liquid was going up my head. Again, like I said, there was no distinction between my body parts, my hand or my head or my whatever. All I could see was the void and the small dot of silver liquid going up. And then the more I focused on it, the more it felt a bit like electricity going up in the dark. And the more it went up, the more it vibrated, and the more I felt a bit of a good feeling. So I was just curious, watching this electricity go up and up and up and up. And then when it went up, as my eyes, again, I had no eyes, but I could just see it going up. And then I felt something at the back of my head, tucking at the back of my head. So I thought, because I had a shaving rash when I was young, so I thought maybe my rash was itching. Then I had the sensation in my body. So, so I thought my rash was itching, and then I should scratch my head. But before I know it, my eyes were closed. The liquid burst out of my head. Then I had the sensation of my body, of the liquid bursting out of the back of my head. As it burst out of the back of my head, the intensity amplified to about, I don't know, 100 times. And then this silvery liquid transformed into, you know what an ECG machine is, where they test your brain waves, they put all that on your head. So it transformed into that. That's the image I had of the liquid, like going through my head. And I was lying on the bed. And it was going extremely fast. As it was going extremely fast, it's like my whole brain lit up, like with pure light. And it was so beautiful. But again, because it was electricity, it was not like the electricity where you touch it and it shocks and you jump back. It was more like a gentle electricity, which was very, I don't know how to explain it, but very intense and very beautiful and very nice. Um, the voltage was so strong and it was so incredible, and all I could see was my whole brain filled with light. And before I realized what was happening, it felt like, like when you have what do you call this? Fireworks, right? It shoots up, pew, and you see the lights go up. I felt like I had fireworks from my brain shoot down to my spine, and it expanded. So in the beginning, I felt like the electricity was only in my not the light, which was like electricity, was only in my brain, and I was so ecstatic. I was ecstatic beyond imagination. I can't explain the ecstasy I felt in that state. Mind you, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. I barely take tablets. I take tablets probably about once every 5 years. So there's nothing. I don't drink alcohol. There's nothing about me which should explain this experience of ecstasy, if that makes sense. As it shot down to my spine and everything expanded, I saw my whole body like filling up with light. And as it continued and intensified, I felt like my body was expanding with light. And although it was very, very, very beautiful, the sheer voltage, I couldn't, I don't want to say withstand, but think of like when you were a child and you were tickled, right? Like somebody tickles your ribs and you start laughing, and you laugh so hard to a point where you just get tired. You can't laugh anymore. It's nice, but you're exhausted of laughing. That's how I felt. Like the whole electricity tickling my whole body, and I was exhausted of ecstasy. If that makes sense. I'm not sure if it makes sense, but it's hard to explain being exhausted of being euphoric. I can't explain that to you, but this is how I felt, like exhaustion, because there was too much light all over my body in the form of electricity, and I felt so euphoric. I couldn't hold on anymore. So as I felt this feeling, I said to myself, I can't take this anymore. It's too much, and it's 2 a.m. at night. So I'm thinking, okay, well, this is the first time it's ever happened to me, and I'm feeling this way, and I'm like, stop, stop, stop. Just said to myself, stop, stop, stop. The moment I said stop, 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 about 3 times or 4 times, I'm not sure how much I said it, because I became frightened. The whole electricity like left my whole body instantly. It's like almost like in a flash. It left my whole body, whoop, back to my head, and back to the part of my head it came out from, it just went back inside, and that was it. It just stopped. And I didn't know what to think about it. I couldn't fall asleep anymore. I was awake. I was exhausted. Um, Sometime around 4 a.m., I'm just guessing. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Sometime around 4 or 5 a.m., I managed to catch some sleep, maybe 2 hours or 3 hours of sleep. When I woke up in the morning, I was exhausted and my whole body was static electricity. I felt static. I touched a piece of paper or cloth, I'd hear sounds and everything on my hand. But that's how I knew that experience I had at night was real to me. And the reason why I describe it as an NDE is because um most from the videos I've watched, most people go through a tunnel, a dark tunnel, and they see the white light, and then they go towards the light. It's exactly what happened to me, but the light came through my whole body. And also there was a point where I did not feel like I had a body. But when the light amplified, then I felt like I had a body. So this is why I explain my experience as an NDE, and also seeing my true nature as light. And sometimes when I meditate, because I became like a regular meditator after the experience, um, probably about 3 times a week, I sometimes, like when I close my eyes, I like see light just goes off where, and there is no source of light available. When I close my eyes, I just see like a light going through my head and everything else, like pure light. And there's no light on or anything else. So I really can't explain where the light is coming from. So that's why I say it's an NDE, and that's why I think I saw like my true nature during this whole experience. And ever since then, my life hasn't been the same again. I get these experiences very regularly, not the same, not of the same intensity, but different intensities, and it hasn't been through my head anymore. I've just seen light, but not the euphoric light. And it's more, when I have euphoria, it's more on my spine and the back of my body. And that's pretty much my NDE experience, my two experiences.
Tony, thank you for sharing your experiences with us. During your second experience, do you think that was any type of result due to the first one?
Well, I think it might be connected to the first one, because when the second one happened, I went on the internet on a daily basis, like just doing research. What happened to me, and I've watched quite a few NDE stories, and they all seem to have both experiences from my first and my second NDE experience all joined into one, and them leaving their bodies. The only difference is I never left my body. Well, I think I never left my body. So this is the only difference I can tell between those experiences online and my experiences.
Right before the second one, were you like in some sort of mental crisis or health crisis that would be a catalyst for this to happen?
No, nothing actually. And even before the first one as well, there was no indication of me in any crisis whatsoever. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm always under pressure. And I've been an entrepreneur for over 17 years. So it's not like I'm not used to pressure or anything else. So there wasn't really any indication of this happening to me. Actually, I was extremely shocked about the whole experience. And also, I have taken quite a few tests, brain scans, oral photography. I mean, I don't mind sharing my oral photographies with you. And my oral photography changes from blue to almost white and light blue. And from the research I've done, meaning from the yogic science or whatever, most of their, I don't know, so-called deities have like blue colors or whatever. I'm really not sure. I'm just learning as we go. But if you ask me, I think I'm pretty healthy. I haven't had any health crisis in the past 20 years. I mean, I've had minor things which, for example, like an outgrowing toenail, which I have to take out or whatever. But nothing to get me bedridden or sick enough not to work. I mean, I've never missed work in 20 years, so I wouldn't say I'm having a health crisis.
While you,
Others might say that, but I wouldn't say that for myself.
while you were going through your second experience, my initial impression was maybe this is some sort of spontaneous Kundalini experience. But then I was thinking, well, that usually starts from the bottom of your spine and moves up, where yours was in your head moving down, right?
Well, yeah, I've heard that term Kundalini a lot. Um, I mean, I know what that means, but while I was having that experience, it's not like I thought to myself, this is a Kundalini experience because I have no reference to what a Kundalini experience feels like, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you telling me, oh, I have to eat, for example, tacos, which is very popular in America. You know, I have no reference to what tacos is. So I can't really tell you what tacos is. And if you gave me tacos to eat, I would eat it, but I would not say this is tacos because I don't know what tacos is, if that makes sense. So it's probably the same experience I had. I don't know what a Kundalini is. I can't tell you if it is or it's not. But from my research about Kundalini, like you said, it goes up your spine and then stays in your head or whatever. But and it doesn't go down. So I don't know, Jeff. You tell me.
I haven't had the experience myself, so I can't give you a certain answer.
Again, Jeff. Another thing is I'm not like like I said before the whole experience. I've been doing yoga probably about 10 times a year, which is almost negligible. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't put any real effort into the whole process
Mm-hmm.
to justify having a Kundalini experience.
I feel like you not disclosing some other abilities that you have, maybe leaving out some of the pieces of the puzzle. And I understand this may not be the right time for you to share those, but that may give us some insight.
Well, I mean, if that's something that interests you, I can talk um
We can talk
when the
about it.
camera is off.
Yeah, we can do that later.
But not on camera and
Right.
not while I still have an active career.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, we don't
I
want you
want
to
to
lose your
finish my
job.
yeah, I want to finish my career first, and then anything can go then. But for now, I just want to sound as normal as possible.
Right.
And the things I said are things which are relatable to most people. Light is relatable to most people. Bright light is relatable to most people. Feeling good is relatable. Anything else would sound a bit out of reach, and I don't want to dwell in the realm of the strange
Right. Well,
at this
that's
time.
one thing I'm curious about is why did you want to leave the country before your father died?
Again, it's just the feeling I had that he was gonna die really fast. My dad was a bit like me as well. He never got sick. And I don't know why I felt that way, but I just felt that way. And it was more of getting myself to a place where I'm kind of like stable and a functioning member of society. Because I knew that if I was in where I was, it would have been slightly more difficult for me to do the things I wanted to do. So I felt like, um, well, internally, I felt like I had to leave and get myself a lot more stable before my dad passed away. If that makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
it's a bit like your dad dying if you're 10 years old. You would really get little out of him in terms of experiences and just that emotional stability. So it's just something I had in me that, and I believe was from the NDEs that I had to hurry up and leave before he died.
If we go back to your first experience when you were on the beach, is it possible that you were mildly out of your body, but not looking at your body? Like perhaps your perception was you know, around your body, not looking through the eyes.
It is very possible. I can only tell you what I felt. Again, this is over 40 years ago. So I can just tell you what I can recollect from that experience. It's very possible that happened. And it's very possible that at 11, 10 years old, I have no notion of what an out of body experience is like. So um, to put this into context would be a bit difficult. Explaining something you haven't experienced before as a child is a bit funny, especially as it took me about 10, 20 years to actually process what happened to me. I didn't even tell my mom or my dad because I was so shocked. It was not like I was shocked, scared. I was just so shocked that I couldn't even process it in my mind as something I could say. It's hard to explain. It's like you watch, for example, I've watched a few boxing matches where some guy got punched so hard, he got knocked unconscious. He woke up and he thought he had won. And he put his hands up, oh, I won, I won, I won, or whatever. That's how shocked I was. It's like I got so shocked, my reality changed. If that makes sense. I couldn't even process what was what. So it's very possible that I had an out of body experience. But in that state of shock, of almost just dying in the ocean, seeing my whole life flash in front of me, something which I had never seen before. And how do you explain to somebody in a 3 second gap, you saw your whole life in front of you? It just doesn't make sense. Even to me, it made no sense to explain that to anybody. And then I sat down and I saw like heaven on earth. Everything felt like heaven. So it's, I think I was so shocked that it's hard to process it. It's possible I was out of my body, but again, with the level of shock I was in, it's really hard to say. It's very possible.
What were your religious or spiritual beliefs growing up as a kid? And did this experience change those in any way?
Oh, okay. Well, growing up, I was Roman Catholic, like baptized in the Roman Catholic church. Um, but again, when I was growing up, I had many questions about religion. And also in Africa, people have their traditional values and their religious values merging together. So I had a bit of both cultures merging together. So I would not really say I was very religious. I would say I was questioning more religion than I was questioning traditions, if that makes sense based on my context. And I'll give you an example. For example, like in the Catholic Church, you give like offerings or alms to the priest or whatever in the basket. You give money for the church or whatever. And my dad always used to give me money to put in the church. So I asked my dad, look at the church, it's massive. It takes about 500 people. I mean, they look like they have money, right? Why would I be giving them money when they have such a massive building? It just doesn't make sense to me as a 5-year-old kid. And I was like, do what I say. So that alone to me was like, I don't want to say a red flag, but I want to say like a question mark. If God's house is so massive, bigger than our house, why should I be giving him money? So with that in mind, I don't want to say I was religious because I was questioning a lot of things from the Catholic Church, but from the traditional side of things, it just felt normal. So I don't want to say I was religious, and I don't want to say I was spiritual. I just say I was like a normal kid, you know, who just did what he was told, and who had too many questions of why is it this way? Why do I have to give money to the church when they have a big house than our house? All these questions, but nothing. I don't want to say I was religious. No.
Well, did these change your beliefs in spirituality or your traditional customs in any way?
Um, yeah, it did change a lot of my spirituality views and beliefs. Again, I was in so much shock for about 10 years that I was more of in a reactive and watching mode than in an actively seeking religious or spiritual path. If that makes sense. So because the experience was so profound, my brain was still trying to process everything that had happened to me. And while I was processing what had happened to me, after that experience, I was almost like a bottom student in my class. I jumped to almost like the top 1% in class. And then I was having other things happening. Not that it happened because I didn't study. I studied really hard. But it's very unheard of. Not unheard of, but it's very unusual to move from the bottom to almost the top within the space of 6 months. It's not normal for it to happen that way. So normally people have like a gradual, and people don't just move from the bottom to the top. It's very, very rare. So I had like different things happening to me which I was trying to process. So I wouldn't say I was seeking spirituality or anything. I was more of trying to process what was happening to me and reacting to the things which are happening to me while I'm growing up. So I did not really have time to figure out if I wanted to be spiritual or not. So I was more like on a very fast train, which was going like a bullet train going. And I was processing my experience and then living in my current reality, which was moving extremely fast. If that makes sense. So I had no time to process um any spiritual beliefs or anything. But all I know is that I wasn't really afraid of dying because of my experience. Because after a particular point of the drowning or the pain, everything just blanked off and I felt a lot more relaxed and calm. Even after the experience, I felt more alive. So I wasn't really scared of death, if that makes sense.
After the third time when you went back down underwater and you thought to yourself, I guess I'm going to die now or something, did you just surrender to death?
Yeah, I think at that point I had surrendered.
It's fascinating for me because when people surrender is usually when they have the NDE. I'm not sure why that is, but letting go somehow appears to save you instead of resisting or fighting.
Yeah. Again, as I explained in the video, during my third time going down, I was externally struggling, but internally I felt some of like a peace. It's like a contradictory reaction to a bad situation where externally I could feel my hands doing that way, but internally I felt at peace with myself. I did not feel like I was struggling. When you're panicking, you are also panicking in your mind. But I wasn't panicking in my mind. I was only panicking externally, which was a bit very strange for me. To be very calm internally, but panicking externally. So at that point, I was like, you know what? I kind of like give up. I know this is it. I've had three chances. This is it. I can't swim. I just felt that peace within me that I'm gonna die. But it was not like I was struggle. I did not feel any struggle internally. If that makes sense, I'm not sure if this is making sense. So I was having two different feelings at the same time. Externally, I felt like I was a different person, but internally, I had like said to myself, I was calm. I wasn't feeling the struggle in my mind. I wasn't feeling like I was stressed out in my head, even though I knew I was dying. But my hands were paddling. But that's how I felt. I just felt like, what, this is it. Uh, it's like two different states I was in. If that
Exa-
makes sense.
exactly. And it's interesting to think about and talk about. It's like your awareness, your consciousness of who you were had already separated from your body in some sort of way. And your body has its own thinking and survival instincts. So your body was trying to save itself. But your conscious awareness was, like I said, already separated from it and was relaxed to whatever the outcome would be.
That's exactly how I felt.
Yeah.
Also, sometimes I box, even at my advanced age. And the thing about boxing is that if you are just a spectator and you are watching a boxing match, you might think, oh, well, this is barbaric. This is, they are hurting, they are struggling or whatever. But when I've been in boxing matches, it's been a very relative time experience. If I'm with somebody who matches me in terms of power, speed, endurance, then it feels like the 3 minutes of the boxing round feels like a lifetime. I'm watching the clock, I'm like, I'm not there anymore. My brain is like, get me out of here. I just want to hear the bell, so I just go sit down. But if I'm sparring somebody who's beneath me, when I say beneath, I don't mean like beneath me, but in terms of ability and all that stuff, I feel more like in a flow state. It's the 3 minutes feels like 2 seconds. I don't, I'm dodging the punches, I'm sending punches. It doesn't feel like I'm struggling. But if you're outside watching me, you would think I am struggling. So it's a very your mind, my mind plays tricks on me depending on what kind of a sparring match I'm in. If it's difficult, then you just look at the time. I don't want to have any part of it. I want to get out. But if it's easy, then it feels like a flow state. It feels very beautiful and very nice and everything else. So that's how I can explain the whole experience. In terms of separation from your body. In that way, I felt like I was at peace with myself, and it felt that way even though I was struggling.
Well, after watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you open to that? And if so,
Oh yeah,
how do they contact you?
that's cool. I have a small channel about addictions. It's called 28 Addict Books on Instagram. You can contact me there, ask me any questions. And the reason why I chose addictions is also because I want to believe that I've never had any addictions. There's mental addictions, the substance addictions. I've never had any substance addiction. I might look big, but I don't have any food addictions. Um, So I felt like with my tests on my brain and oral photographies showing where my major energy centers are focused. You can clearly see on my photographies that the last three base chakras, I have very little energy focused on there, and my top from my solar plexus upwards, I score extremely high on those chakras. So and the base energy centers are where most addictions are based. It's either food addiction, sex addiction, drug addiction. All these are based on survival stuff, and based on my energy readings, I really have very little energy down there, and most of my energy is focused up there. So I felt like there's maybe some things I have done which have helped me out in having a free addiction life. Some of them which were just because I saw my parents drinking too much and not behaving properly, and I just said to myself, you know what, I don't really want to be like this when I grew up, and I just did not fancy alcohol even from a very young age. And also, I saw one of my cousins she used to drink coffee every morning, and the day she did not have coffee, it's like she got crazy. She was like, I must drink coffee. I was like 5 years old. She sent me out to go buy coffee. She went late to work, about 3 hours late to work, and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to be that old when I grow up. And then I start, depending on coffee so much. I have nothing against coffee. If I go out with friends and they're drinking coffee, I might take some coffee just to socialize. But I don't drink coffee. So all these things I just changed in my life while I was young, simply by watching my elders around me. I just made different decisions. And all that helped me with not having any addictions. I mean, I wouldn't know how to tell you what any drug feels like. Um, Cannabis or cocaine or whatever. I, I, I've never tried any of them. I wouldn't know. So I just felt like, and also because my brother, the same mom and dad, has a severe alcohol addiction. So it's one way of me trying to help him as well during his addictions. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, especially if you're a sibling trying to help another sibling. There's other feelings attached to it. But if you're helping somebody who is completely a stranger to you, they would probably see you completely differently from your sibling. So I feel like I can contribute a lot more in this area to anybody. I mean, I have lots of free videos up about things to do, like change your environment, change your friends, just simple things to do. Some foods to cut out just to reduce your addiction, because addiction is more like uh mental addiction is more like a combination of many different addictions. And if you can take up the addictions which you don't feel too entrapped in, then the other major addictions somehow fall off as time goes on. That's how I approach addictions. Just simply taking out things which you don't really mind not doing, and then as you build on that, you get a lot stronger and stronger and stronger, and you can break free from it.
How are you inspired by your experiences?
One, I know for sure that I am more than my body. The second thing about my experience is because I've had experiences that I never even thought possible in terms of the energy realm and in terms of the things I've seen and I've done. I've I always feel like anything I set my mind to it, I always achieve it, and in most cases, it's happened. Um, so this is the one of the major positives about the NDE, because things which I have experienced, which are I don't want to say supernatural, but I want to say a bit out of the ordinary. I always think to myself, okay, well, if this which I thought wasn't possible is possible, then the other things which are very normal be very easy to do. So I always set like some very ridiculous goals, which if somebody hears them, they think I lost my mind. But somehow I always tend to achieve most of them. So this is the one good thing about my NDEs, because I look at most things as achievable, um, especially as the unachievable has been part of my life in terms of the energy part. I'm thinking if that is achievable, then anything else should be extremely easy to do. So this is the good thing, or that's how I interpret my NED. Um, and I also feel like I am again. I did not mention about seeing any God or any Jesus or anything like that, because that wasn't my experience. I only mention what I experienced. I know my story would not sound sexy to most people, but this is what I experienced, and it correlates with most of the so-called people who died and went to heaven and they saw God and they saw their life ahead of them and they saw the gardens and the Akashic records, all that stuff. My story all correlates with that. But the only thing which doesn't correlate is that I don't think I died. Well, I believe I did not die. I can't confirm if I died or not, but I know in my mind I did not die. So this is the only discrepancy. So like I left and saw my body somewhere down there, or no, no, no. I was in my body in all these experiences, and they all happened to me, and I felt like my body is I'm a light being. The only disadvantage is that I want to this state I've been in to be my permanent state, but it feels more like it happens to me accidentally, which is the only drawback, if that makes sense. It's like I'm not sure how to explain it to you, but it's like having something you'd always dreamt of, but only having it for a while. It feels very, especially having it for a while when you are not you haven't outgrown that experience. It always leaves you wanting for more, if that makes sense. But if you have something and you've outgrown the thing, then you don't really miss it. But it's like I just got introduced into this wonderful experience, and it gets taken from me, and I feel I want to say to be like an addiction, which is not, because an addiction, there's something which you can attain or have easily. But this is not something I can attain or have easily. It's something that just happens to me spontaneously.
Is it possible that you are addicted to the experiences that you had and you're trying to have them again?
Well, that's very possible. But an addiction is something which is uncontrollable. And this is not something I control. So I really can't say I'm addicted to that. But i- it's intoxicating. I mean, to have joy beyond your imagination, it's the memory alone, just the memory alone, just keeps me wanting to have more or have another experience. But I've never had two similar experiences. It's always something different. It's always something else. So I don't like. I stopped looking for those experiences anymore. I just like gave up and surrendered. I'm like, okay, well, whatever happens next, I never asked for any of the experiences. It just happened to me. So I'm thinking more like, okay, well, I'm not looking for any particular experiences anymore, but whatever happens next, I hope it's a nice one, and I hope it stays longer.
Well, before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
Although one last positive message would be that I experience myself as pure light, pure joy, pure. I don't want to say consciousness, but pure electricity. Um, and I know for a fact that this is what my true nature is, even though it was just for a very brief moment. I know for 1,000% fact that this is what my true nature is. And although sometimes I get glimpses and flashes of it, um, maybe this is what our bodies can take in terms of voltage or spiritual awareness. I'm not sure, but that experience alone um, always makes me um, look up to the beauty of being human, even though I have my challenges, like everybody else. I don't know what your life is like, but I want to believe that as an entrepreneur, my life is 20 times harder than yours. I mean, it's not a competition, but I'm just saying, if you're an entrepreneur, it's extremely challenging. Um, but in all that, I feel like if we tap into who we really are, by just starting by controlling what you eat, because your body is your temple. You know, what you eat, how many times you eat, would just raise your vibration to a level where you would function in ways which you would not believe was possible. So this is my message to the viewers. We are light beings, um, and we are what we eat and drink. So if you focus on I don't know, I eat meat once in a while, maybe like once in 6 months or so. But my diet is mostly fish, and natural fruits. So mostly that. Uh, if you focus on natural stuff and fish, and meat once in a while, once in 6 months or once in a year, I think your vibration would go raise higher, and you might be more susceptible to these vibrations. Even though when I was a kid at 11 years old, I ate everything, meat more than I ate fish, and I still had an NDE. So I'm really, I'm really not sure what to say here, but I'm just telling you how I live now, and that's the message to most people. Just focus on your eating, what gets into your mouth, and what gets into your brain, and you would kind of like experience yourself as who you really are.
Tony, thank you for your message and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you very much, Jeff, for having me on your podcast. I hope I entertained you, and I hope I changed somebody's life or answered some questions some people were seeking, because I have been on this journey as well, with little or no answers. And I watch a lot of videos online, and they also helped me during my journey. So I hope to maybe help somebody else on the same journey.
I'm sure you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.